Hey everyone, welcome back to Why This Beer, the podcast where we dive deep into the craft beer world and uncover the stories behind the brewers and their beers. I'm your host, Darren Binneman, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Aslan Graves. We've got an awesome episode lined up for you today with none other than Nick Fengler from Old Yale Brewing. Nick has had quite the journey in the craft beer industry, starting at established breweries like Dead Frog, helping to launch Ravens Brewing, and now steering the ship at Old Yale Brewing. We'll be chatting about his career, what it's like to lead a legacy brand like Old Yale, and of course, we'll dive into their iconic Sasquatch Stout, a beer with a rich history in the BC craft beer scene. But that's not all. We're also going to discuss Old Yale's exciting expansion into Abbotsford and their newest project opening in Beaumont, Alberta. Plus, Nick will give us a peek into how Old Yale is experimenting with new ingredients while refining their core lineup. To wrap things up, we'll talk about the BC beer industry and how Nick manages to find that elusive work-life balance in such a demanding industry. So grab your favorite beer, sit back, and let's jump into it with Nick Fengler of Old Yale Brewing. Enjoy. All right, welcome to another episode of Why This Beer. I'm your host, Darren Binema, and I'm here with Aslan Graves. And joining us today is Nick Fengler from Old Yale Brewing. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show, or the podcast. I don't know what this is. So thanks for doing this. And as we usually do with most of our guests, what's your journey in brewing? What was your first exposure to craft beer, and how did you first get into the industry?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's been a while. I guess it all goes back to 2012.
It was black and white back then.
Yeah, old-timey music. Yeah. So I had graduated from university with a degree in biology and chemistry, and I was working as a field biologist. And I was doing like population counts on migratory birds and all this really super cool environmental stuff. But one day while I was out there doing my counts in mud up to my knees in the rain, and to give you an idea, the counts are like counting bird poo. That's actually what I was doing.
Less glamorous.
And I realized that I had a meeting with my supervisor then, and they had informed me that my contract was ending and I would likely have 3 to 6 month contracts for the next 7 to 10 years before I would get a full-time position. I thought it might be a good idea to look at other opportunities. So
that's wild.
So I left my my brief biologist career behind, and I kind of wrote emails and to like every craft brewery that was open at the time, and it wasn't that many, a lot less than it is now. So I think maybe I did, I don't know, 12 or 15, something like that.
I covered probably all of them.
Yeah. So yeah, and then.
And had you homebrewed before that, or was it just like, no, I'm gonna go right in? You got the applicable skills.
Yeah, no, I hadn't homebrewed before, but I was always super interested. Like I had been going to different beer tastings and wine tastings and different food sort of festivals and all that sort of stuff. So that was always kind of my interest, my jumping off point from that side of things. And then obviously I really didn't know that much about brewing at the time. So I just wasn't even sure if it was like a real job or is this a thing?
Yeah.
And I got no responses back, except from Dead Frog. So Dead Frog, their head brewer at the time, who was Tony DeWald. Side note, unfortunately,
rest in peace.
Yeah, he lost his battle with cancer recently. But if it wasn't for him, he reached out to me, and they needed somebody because he was already having some health issues at that time, and they needed someone that he could basically just sit there and say, do this, do that, do this, do that. And he wanted somebody who would at least understand the basics of the biochemical interactions that were going on during the process. So I took that job, and it was, I don't even know what the position would be called, assistant helper guy.
Yeah.
And it
beer
was
brewer. Yeah.
It was
a very
like,
glorified assistant brewer.
Yeah. And it pretty much consisted of like moving bags of grain and cleaning kegs. Like I would come in at like 3 p.m. and then work till 11 p.m. and just clean kegs.
Oh, man.
Very right at the very bottom, like as bottom as you can go. And but yeah, I worked my way up and kind of, I guess, proved myself, I suppose. And it, with a few different staff changes, all of a sudden some different openings were available, and then I became the second brewer, and we were brewing a lot. Like at the time, I mean, I have a pretty poor grasp of how big or busy any breweries are, like even now, aside from the ones I'm working at. But we were brewing probably like 500 hectoliters a week. Like,
wow.
We
just serious amounts of beer. Yeah.
It was pretty intense. Like Steamworks, we had their full contract because they didn't have their production brewery open yet. So we were brewing Steamworks beer and Dead Frog beer.
Wow.
And Dead Frog had quite the like tap presence in the Lower Mainland, at least at that point. Like,
yeah, really. Yeah. Like it was, they were pretty busy.
Yeah.
Again,
remember it was like that mix pack that was like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the brown ale and like had like a salted pepper something lager or something.
I
remember that.
Black pepper lime lager or whatever.
Something like that. Yeah.
But
a lot of that.
But yeah, so worked there after a couple of years. Then Tony moved on. He went to a different brewery, Old Abbey Ales, and then Trading Post, I think.
Right.
And so I briefly took the head brewer position there, and that was, I'd say, 18 months after I started. So I went from like, I don't know anything. I've never brewed anything.
Yeah.
And then by the time Tony left, it was like, I've brewed my first beer that I've designed, and now I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Here we go.
But
the Rocket Man ESB.
Yeah. So that was my first beer. That was my first beer that I ever designed.
Sweet.
Well, that's not true. Once I had gotten hired at Dead Frog, I started home brewing. So I had been doing some stuff, but that was my first like commercial, professional beer. Yeah,
that's pretty fun. Those moments, like seeing it go from like concept to idea, and then you're like filling pallets of something that you designed.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I have to say, like, I haven't brewed that or a version of that since it came out, but I still have the notes on the recipe, and I still think it's a pretty solid beer. Like I would still rebrew that.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah. It's kind of like a little bit. It took inspiration from Deschutes Red Chair, so kind of hoppy, malty balance, but yeah. So, anyways, after that, around that time when I had taken over, KPU was starting their brewing program, and they had come by Dead Frog to just get some feedback. I think they were talking to a lot of breweries to see what are you looking for?
What's needed.
Yeah. And I don't remember what happened, but somehow I found out they were actually hiring for a instructor position, and they needed someone who had chemistry background and brewing background to teach brewing chemistry labs and the practical brewing lab. I was like, hey,
that sounds like me.
I have that.
Yeah.
So after a couple years at Dead Frog, the end of summer was rolling around. The beginning of the brewing program was just starting. I went over to KPU and became their chemistry lab instructor and practical brewing instructor. So
sweet.
So then I was.
You got to work on the nicest 2 hectoliter brew house in all of BC.
Yeah, it's
with the
yes,
tiny
I
little
did.
tri-clamps, right?
Yeah, the little one. What are they? 1 inch? I think that's what they're called, or ½ inch. I can't remember.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously small.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You also must have been one of the youngest profs at that point.
Yes. So technically, I wasn't allowed to be a prof because I didn't have a doctorate.
Right.
So I was an instructor.
Fair. Yeah.
But let's see, that was 2014. So I was 26. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my math's working out there. I don't know. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
But yeah, so, and that was really cool. That was a really fun experience. It was kind of, out of all my brewing career, that's the most different. It's not in industry really, right? So you're kind of just on your own timeline. Everything's also unionized, so that makes it's really different. I haven't really had a lot of experience in those sorts of positions.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. And a lot with that first cohort, a lot of those people that came through went on to have a big impact in the BC brewing community.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like
probably some early brewers out there now.
Yeah. I know, well, for example, like Dan from Ravens Brewing. We'll get to that, but he's from Kwantlen. Ashley Brooks, who was at Four Winds and Mark James Group stuff for a while.
Yeah.
There's a whole handful of them that are out there. I can't remember all their names, so sorry if you're listening and I forgot your name, but
you taught them everything they know.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's all because
all the good things. Yeah.
Practical brewing, that was my doing. So,
So were you leading, were you helping the students come up with beers there and then helping them to brew on the system? Or was that kind of part of your job too, or?
Yeah. So my job, as far as practical brewing went, so they had the Newlands pilot system, which is the super fancy 2 heck. Is it 2? Might even be 1. I don't know. Whatever it is, very small system.
Yeah.
But then we also had sort of just a sort of 3-vessel little homebrew setup.
Right.
But we had, I think, 9 of those. So and they were all 5-gallon pots with induction heaters, and so a whole class of 18 into pairs would all be brewing at the same time.
Wow.
And then it would just rotate who's brewing on the pilot system, and everyone else would brew on the sort of more homebrew style systems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would kind of provide some supervision and guidance in that area. I'm not going to take all the credit. They have some really great professors there, Alec Eggy and Dominic Bernard. They're both fantastic, and they definitely were. They were definitely carrying the majority of the weight. I was just having a great time. So
yeah. It's sounds like a crazy weird episode of MasterChef.
It is.
All these yeah. It's crazy.
But yeah, so I was doing that, and I had never been a teacher or in that sort of position before, and
right.
I kind of, the school starts in September, and about January, I was like, I don't think this is really for me. Like, this is fun, but like, this just isn't really. It's not really doing it for me.
Yeah.
I kind of missed the hectic and rush of actually brewing, and it was just a little bit too relaxed. I was kind of thought, I was like, if I was like 30
the crunch
years
time
older,
of production and
yeah,
the unexpected LTOs or
yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, the boiler's not working, and but yeah, so yeah, about halfway through the first year, I kind of was starting to get a bit of an itch to get back into actually brewing again, and it just so happened that I met a gentleman named Paul Sweeting, who was opening a brewery in Abbotsford, and I came on as his employee number 1, and we opened Ravens Brewing, and that was in 2015.
What was that like, opening a brewery from the start?
That was, it was pretty intense. It was very hands-on. I obviously had the most sort of involvement of my career has been in Ravens, and then now in Old Yale. And it's just they're just very different sort of strategies and mentalities of how to go about doing it. Ravens was very much like, we are going to do it yourself, DIY this, all of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's just like, no, I'm going to be putting down the epoxy coating on the floor, and I'm going to be, doing the silicone to make sure these windows aren't leaking. And hey, can you switch out a toilet? Because I can now.
You do have all these new skills that you didn't think you could have.
Yeah, but it was a great time. It was a great learning experience, and I think it was at Ravens that I started to feel a little bit more confident in my own brewing skills. At Dead Frog, it very much was so rushed and so new. I quickly would question a lot of decisions that I was making. With the time at Kwantlen and then just working through stuff at Ravens, it was a really good growth period, and I'm really happy with some of the beers that we were able to produce. They had a great team. Like I said, I had been teaching Dan at Kwantlen, and then I needed to hire someone, and so I kind of had a rough idea of which of these students. I know
some people,
So
I've already trained them the way I want.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
this guy, I can get along with him, and he knows what's going on. So,
Oh, sorry. With Ravens, you started out with kind of like a bit of a Belgian line, didn't you? As well, like you were doing a fair bit of saisons and.
Yeah, we had 3 core beers when we first started. I don't even know if any of them exist anymore, but at the time it was we had a golden ale, and then we had a West Coast pale ale, which was kind of secretly an evolution of the Rocket Man,
there you go.
but with more West Coasty hops. But the same sort. It was again kind of like a malty pale ale.
Yeah.
And then we had we called it a farmer's ale, but it was a French saison.
Farmer's ale. I like that one.
Yeah. And it was really good. And then we got massive cross-contamination with everywhere. And it was a catastrophe. But it was really good for a while.
I guess that was that era where everybody was like, "Oh no, how good is our QC?"
Yeah.
And it was
everybody's switching between lagers and French saison.
Yeah. I remember we had we had released a dark mild, and I mean it had a fair amount of residual sugars, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we got we had a pallet sitting in the back, and I went and looked at him like, all of these cans look like they're going to explode.
No.
Something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's when I found out that there was such thing as diastatic.
Diastaticus.
Diastaticus.
I feel like that was coming out then. That people were kind of cluing into that, like, oh, that these yeasts.
Yeah.
Everyone was so scared of Brett.
Yeah.
Brettanomyces back then, like, well, that's we got to watch it, and but then like just full send on like dry French saison strains, like just go for it. Why not? This is great. And then
they're really nice.
Yeah.
Like I really like the saison that you get with those strains. Like that was what was it? Yeast 3711, I think, was the strain that we were using, and I'm a big fan of it. But holy moly, you better be on top of everything. And some of the obviously some of the procedures, we'll say, perhaps could have been tightened up. We also had some DIY style packaging equipment that I think perhaps procedures we're never going to get 100%. But don't get me wrong. I don't believe they have any issue at this point. This was years ago. So.
Ravens has well resolved that.
Brewing back then was more of the Wild West than it's much. We've improved so much in 10 years.
Yes, definitely. So
how long were you there? And then
so I was at Ravens what would it be, 2.5 years. So the first part of my career I kind of bounced around fairly quickly. So it's 2 years at Dead Frog, 10 months at Kwantlen, 2.5 years at Ravens, and then 2017, right before summer, I moved over to Old Yale, and that's where I've been since then.
Yeah, a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you there with Old Yale from the start? Like, is that when they opened in 2017, or was it kind of starting before then?
So Old Yale, the brand has been around for quite a while. So Larry Kaza is the original owner and brewer, and he started it in 1999.
Oh wow!
Didn't they have Sierra Nevada, an old Sierra Nevada brew house or something like that?
Deschutes.
Oh, Deschutes.
Yeah.
Well, you're just full of knowledge, Aslan.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Sometimes.
I was impressed with that rocket, man. That was a good one.
That's a big pull.
Trying.
But yeah, so they started in 1999, and then they kind of went through a few different iterations, different owners. Larry was still always around. And then, so the current owners, who are the Van Leeuwens, it's family, they bought Old Yale in 2014. And Larry was on as the brewmaster. And at that point they had a lot of very similar core beers that we have now. Definitely the beginnings of the core beers that we have now were already kind of somewhat established at that point. By about 2015, I think, is when the Sasquatch Stout won. 2014 or 2015, the Sasquatch Stout won Best Beer in Canada. It was like right after they bought the brewery. But Larry had already been brewing it. It wasn't like that they bought it and it's a new guy. No.
Nick didn't show up, and all of a sudden.
No, unfortunately, that was not me. I cannot take claim to that. So they were already kind of doing their thing, and as I was kind of describing, like, Ravens was very DIY, and Old Yale, especially the new ownership, was very much like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We're going to do everything as best we can to the best that we're aware of how we can do this.
Right.
So it was really different. It was very, very different environment. Good and bad. It's a lot scarier when there's lots of expensive things around that you don't feel comfortable just kind of fixing yourself. You have to get used to being comfortable with that. But
you're not a centrifuge tech?
I'm getting there, apparently.
Oh no.
I know enough to know when something's wrong.
There you go. Yeah.
Whether they're good bangs or bad bangs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to be vibrating like that.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, so 2016. So a couple years after they bought it, they did a full build out of a new facility, which is where we're at now, our production facility, and it was a little bit smaller. Like I think the area was maybe 8,000 square feet, and now we're about 12. Because we did another expansion in 2018. But yeah, so they at that point, this is still before I had come on. They had already bought a new. We have a 4-vessel semi-automated Newland system. For those of maybe Aslan, if you've ever been to the old Big Rock system,
okay, yeah,
it's like we have the same system as them, except it's all stainless and no copper.
No copper cladding.
Yeah. Or whoever owns that system now. I think it's been auctioned off, but
yeah, I think it went for a pretty modest price.
Yeah. Whoever got that, good deal.
I know. Yeah.
But yeah, so they had nice new equipment, a variety of different tank sizes. So it's
super well. I've been there before, and it's super well laid out too. Like lots of room. What a novelty for a brewery.
Yeah,
you can walk around and put a pallet in front of the tank.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
It's they've done a good job, and they had set it up initially in a very smart way, and then through the different expansions and moving of tanks and all of that sort of stuff, that's been my goal, is to kind of don't lose that, like keep everything functional and cleanable and usable. So I think I've got that, but
no, it looks
can always
good.
be better.
Yeah.
Nice. So, and then with so how many of the core products are pretty well established when you came on?
Yes. So when
you being there for 7 years, have you adjusted them based on supply chain or things and
I think at this point pretty well all of the cores have been adjusted. They've all had adjustments made to their hop additions, whether that is variety of hop or just the rates that we're hopping at. I mean, the rates change all the time with especially bittering hops, obviously, different alphas. We've changed some techniques just to try to minimize losses as far as what we're using in the whirlpool or in the tanks. Some different hop products. Yeah, it is tricky because we have such established cores that you can't make any drastic changes. It has to be as small as hopefully no one can really detect, but kind of detect.
Incremental change. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Only notice if it's positive.
Yeah. So for the core beers, I would say the one that we've changed the least is either probably our mango or the Sasquatch. Obviously, the Sasquatch is very well received.
Yeah.
We haven't really fiddled with it.
Do you brew Sasquatch year round?
We do. We do brew Sasquatch year round. I mean, it's definitely not
twice a year.
Yes, exactly. We I mean, year round. It is like once in the summer, and it's like, well, it's not like flying off shelves when it's 30 degrees outside.
Exactly. But I'm sure you have a pretty diehard base, for that beer.
And then you don't have to have the person coming into your tap room being like, you know what, you should make a dark beer all year. I love drinking dark beers in summer.
Yeah. No, we got you covered, buddy. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But
perfect. Well,
I'll send all my guys out there.
Yeah, you should. We got Sasquatch.
Yeah, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Sasquatch, let's talk more about Sasquatch Stout.
Yeah.
How, I guess you said it's been around basically as long as the brewery as a brand has been around. I was looking into it, and it won a gold medal at the Canadian Brewing Awards, according to the internet.
Yeah.
In 2005.
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah.
And then it also won a silver in this past CBA's 2024.
Yes.
So that's like basically it's 19 years.
It's
this
doing
is
pretty
won
good.
medals. Like, that's a crazy track record for a beer. Like, that's awesome. So, and I mean, that's not to mention it's won like tons of other awards in between those years too. Like, it's not just bookends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's lots of, like you said, 2015 won an award. But so yeah, how much pressure is it to keep this legacy going? And
yeah.
And what
well, I mean, yeah, there is pressure to keep it going. So there's definitely pressure to don't change this, Nick. Don't make any drastic alterations here. We got a good thing, so just keep it rolling, and that has its own challenges, like I said, different years, different hops, different malt. We are having some, I mean, obviously it's very malt forward, and you have your specific suppliers for your specialty malt, and all of a sudden those are out of stock. It's like, nah, okay. Do we have appropriate substitutions? But honestly, I think a big part of why it does so well in awards is I think it's really just to style. Like, it's
right.
I don't know. I like to think that my other beers aren't winning awards because they're not to style, but maybe
that's right.
Maybe that's not the reason. But
that's what we all think.
Obviously,
yeah.
It's too hoppy. It's too good for this style.
Yeah. The argument of brewing to market versus brewing to style.
Yeah. And I do think there is some truth to that. Maybe not all the time everywhere, but this beer, our Sasquatch Stout. Oh, here it is.
There you go. Wow.
Yes, it's newly in cans this year, so find it at your
is this
BC
the first
liquor
year in
store.
cans?
It was in cans like 5 years ago. We had it when I joined 2017. It was in every format, so it was in 6-packs, 4-packs, bombers, just everything. One-way kegs. It was disaster. So then we reined that back in. And we've been bottling it up until last year. And then finally my entire team had a revolt and was like, never again.
Never.
No, cans just make more sense.
That's the reoccurring theme right now is no more bombers.
Yeah.
Well, I think I know you guys were saying you're having a tough time finding it up where you were, but one of the reasons why our bomber was listed in like every BC liquor store because there was like 4 options of bombers.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it was listed before there was 4 options. But it was one of the long holdouts to not switch over.
Oh yeah, I got to the point where my boss was like, we should maybe do bombers. Because there's just it was so like at one point everyone was in bombers. And then all of a sudden there was no one in, but it's like now there's shelf space for bombers. It's like, do we have to bottle beer now? But thankfully not.
I kind of went off on a rambling tangent there, so I apologize. But
so like getting back to like the malt focus, or it stayed relatively the same. True brand.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Sasquatch hops in Sasquatch.
No, so that's actually that is actually something I've been working towards changing because I feel like it's too perfect,
it's too on the nose.
But so the Sasquatch hops came out after the beer, and then it was kind of like, well, we have these contracts for these hops that I've already bought, so
Yeah, gotta run through these at least. Yeah.
But yeah, Sasquatch is Canada's only proprietary hop for those who don't know. So maybe not only now, but it was definitely the first.
For sure.
So much like Citra or Mosaic for Yakima, Sasquatch is Canada's proprietary.
Yeah.
So what kind of malts are in Sasquatch, or could you give a rundown in the SV if you care to divulge? Secrets?
So it's actually kind of funny. So it's 5 seconds after I say it's really to style. It's not really to style. It's kind of like it's in between a dry stout and an oatmeal stout. So I think it tends to lean a little bit more towards oatmeal stout. Definitely, it has flaked oats, has roasted barley, some chocolate malt, some Crystal 80, and then some pale malt. And I think that's about it. Like it's nothing crazy.
No.
And then Magnum, solid Magnum in there, and
bitter it up.
And
soon Sasquatch.
Goes. Yeah, soon Sasquatch. But yeah, like it's not a. I don't think it's a really complex beer. I think it's just very well balanced as far as what the ratios are. I could take a stab at what they are, but without having the sheet in front of me, I can't remember exactly.
Just balancing the like roastiness probably and the bitterness and
the
sweetness, all that stuff is like what makes a really good stout in my opinion. You want that roasty note, but if it lingers just too much, and then it gets that very astringent.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think again, I did not create the main recipe here, so I'm not just tooting my own horn. I think Larry really struck a balance here. There's a slight smokiness from that real deep roast, but overall it's just some real nice espresso dark chocolate notes, like rich dark chocolate and coffee. Yeah, it's a better try.
Was it designed on the Deschutes system then?
It was. That's my understanding. So
big. It just wants to brew good dark beer.
Yeah. There's So I think the only change we've really made to it was we did lower the bitterness. But that was like 4 years ago. So we just took it back a little bit. It was a little aggressive.
Yeah.
As soon as this podcast comes out, you're going to have everybody being like, I want that bitterness back up.
Probably. You ruined it. That's why it was silver, not gold.
Yeah, why?
But
very cool.
Yeah,
it's perfect kind of beer for going right into fall, right? Just
yeah, I think so.
Yeast-wise, are you using like an English ale?
No, we're so we just use our house strain is USO5, good old classic workhorse. Yeah. And it's fermented. We fermented a little bit warmer. It's at 20, so it's not crazy. Most of our ales we ferment at 18. This one is at 20. It does finish with a relatively high finishing gravity, so it's around 3.5 to 3.7 Plato. So I think that helps balance it out. So it's not super dry, and that bitterness gets a little bit of sweetness to help round everything a bit. Mm-hmm.
Is it ever released on Nitro?
It is. So we do
taproom exclusive.
Yeah. So we can't can Nitro. I mean, we could, I suppose, if we brought in like a dosing unit.
Yeah.
But we have it on from time to time in the tap room, or sometimes we have special accounts will do it for us. So if you're out there and you might come across it, I think we're looking at doing some Nitro kegs in the next couple of weeks. So they could be filtering out there soon.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Is it? Are you manually nitrogenating each keg?
You betcha.
Okay, that makes me feel better about doing the same thing.
So we do have like this, I don't know, it's called a nitrogenator. We bought it at CBC like a few years ago, and basically it just kind of slowly pumps the beer from the tank into the keg, and as it's going through, it's just at a really high pressure, with a nitrogen tank attached. It's pretty good, but it takes like, you can get a keg done in like 45 minutes, a 50. So it's not like, it's a tasting room exclusive. This is not mass production.
Yeah.
That's a lot of love.
But it's pretty good on nitro. Like, I have to say, like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Those kind of beers are like, almost like made for nitro, right? It smooths it, even any bitterness is like smoothed right out.
Bitterness gone, like hyper creamy. It's
dangerously drinkable.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people come into the tasting room and they see it, and I mean, it's a stout. It's like pitch black. Black.
Yeah.
And in Chilliwack here and in the Fraser Valley, it's gotten a lot better, but it wasn't like some sort of huge craft beer mecca, you know?
Right.
There's a lot of educating and a lot of exposing people to styles they never heard of. And even now, to this day, if someone sees it and that's dark, I won't like that. That's going to be too intense. And it's like, do you drink coffee? Yes.
Yeah.
You should try this. It's just try it.
Yeah, for sure.
They usually like it.
Nice.
Yeah. Dark beer has a bad stigma against it. I don't know what it is. Yeah. I always say, my joke was always like, if you gave someone a sample of a dark beer, just like, here, just try a little bit of it. And like, without fail, they would say, oh, pretty good for a dark beer.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, for sure.
Turns out you actually might like this.
Yeah.
Speaking of the kind of beer culture in the Fraser Valley area, you've been brewing out in that since 2014 or 2012, like onward.
Yeah.
How has it been like seeing it go from like essentially one or two breweries to, I don't know how many are out there now, probably like 25.
Yeah.
At least in like the between Langley and Chilliwack now.
It's been pretty dramatic. I mean, I think everywhere in BC grew significantly through that sort of decade. But it's I definitely didn't expect it. I always thought like, oh, obviously like Vancouver or wherever, those places are that makes sense. But all of a sudden it was like, wait, my grandpa wants to drink craft beer? Like, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
Maybe he was just being nice to me, but but it's pretty cool. Like, I say this a little bit hesitantly because it seems like it's not as easy as it was, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm hopeful that everything maintains. It's pretty neat to be able to just be in pretty well any neighborhood or city, and I think pretty much everywhere has at least one, probably at least three. Like in the last 5 years, even here in Chilliwack, we've had. So we were here. Obviously, we were the first sort of craft brewery in Chilliwack, and then who else came? Then it was Bricklayer and Farmhouse and Sidekick, and then Fieldhouse opened their second location out here, and it's been really cool. It's neat.
Yeah, 5 or 6 breweries, like, and Chilliwack does not have a huge population.
No.
I mean, for sure beer drinkers, but not what you'd kind of expect to be like traditionally like hoppy or like adventurous beer drinkers, I would say.
And I do think that our styles still do end up catering that way. to our beer drinkers. It's been, as I've matured in my career, I've realized that not everyone likes all the beers I like. Or not everyone's going to buy the beers that I like. You kind of need them to buy the beers. So so and that's okay. I don't really dislike any specific styles. I don't know if anyone listening or anybody out there follows our social media. They definitely we have this running gag of how marketing pushes our fruit beers and how the brewers hate it. I don't hate fruit beers.
No.
I just want to brew lots of different things, but fruit beers sell a lot. Where we are, it's like fruit beers, sours, hazies. But I think that's probably
that's almost everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And I challenged this idea when we have a brew pub location in Abbotsford that opened about 18 months ago. And one of the taps there, so we have 4 taps that are dedicated to beers brewed on site. So they're served straight from the tank. And one of the taps is called traditional or classic style. And it's just kind of whatever we want. Turns out that's not a really fast-moving tap. So it's like, I'm going to do a traditional best bitters.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, it's been 8 weeks and we've barely made a dent in it.
And it was mostly me drinking it. Yeah.
And then it's like, meanwhile, we've already rotated through 2 different sour taps. It's like, all right. Well,
Nick's brewed 1 batch of Rocket Man annually there.
Yeah. But
oh man.
Yeah. So there definitely is a demographic out here. Loggers are a really big thing. I know they're a big thing everywhere.
Yeah.
But they were like a big thing. They've been a big thing for us for like at least 6 years. Where it's like old guys coming in and they're like, we want to support local, but I only drink Budweiser. Okay. So we but one core that I designed is our Fraser Valley Lager. So
nice.
There you go. If you're looking for that.
Yeah.
Beechwood aged.
Only the finest. Brewed
cold
with rice.
filtered and cold conditioned. And if Mount Baker is blue, that's how you drink it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or Sheem, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned your Abbotsford location. Yeah, how did that go? I know that I think you opened at the perfect time, like either during or before or like right after COVID. I can't remember exactly when you opened. And then if you want to touch on the new Beaumont location that's opening, just let us know what's the next town that Old Yale is going to take over. And how are those expansions going?
They're going really well. So we opened our Abbotsford, I don't know, what are we officially calling it? I think it's called Craft Brewery and Kitchen, or Kitchen and Craft Brewery, or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
It's much more restaurant, sort of hospitality focused. And then it does have a brew system on site. So we opened that about 18 months ago. So I guess right as the very last sort of things of COVID were being lifted, I guess, maybe a little bit after.
Nice.
And it's been really well received. It's going really well. That one had been in the works for a long time. So, and COVID really caused a lot of problems for that. Yeah. So, because I think we bought the location, like that property, in 2019.
Oh wow.
And then so we opened in 2023. So 4 years is a long time to get it going, and so that it was nice to finally have that kind of rolling. And then while that was kind of building out, we had already started figuring out our next spot, which is in Beaumont, just south of Edmonton. And now we're in sort of I would call it the home stretch. The home stretch to me of the timeline, but we're probably about 6 or 8 months out from being open out there. And then just to give an idea.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So for people who aren't familiar with Old Yale, any of our locations, our main production facility is in Chilliwack. It has a tasting room, has a big outdoor patio. And I think with the patio and everything, it seats maybe 150, something like that, 100, 150. Our Abbotsford location is, it's a little bit bigger seating, so I think it's at 240, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
And then this Beaumont one was just, I don't know, I guess Alberta's kind of like Texas and everything's bigger there. So, it's going to be, I believe with all the patios open, it should be around 400 seats.
Only?
Yeah. That's
half the population of Beaumont, I think.
It's a very impressive building, I will say.
Yeah.
I went out there for the first time in this summer and stood inside it, and I've seen drawings, obviously, but it's like you have this sort of great room area. There's 2 stories, like a foyer inside, and then you have sort of the open all the way to the ceiling on one sort of half. And I think it's like 35-foot ceilings in the peak. So it's like,
sweet.
I think we had some people come by and ask if it was a church that was being opened.
In Beaumont, Alberta? Yeah.
Yeah. Is this a church?
Yeah.
Well, it could be, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Come on in every Sunday, have some beer.
But no, it's gonna be the place to be. Like, I'm really excited for that.
With those tall ceilings, you getting stackable tanks then? In order to maximize your seats.
we could. We just don't even need to. Like the floor space is gargantuan. But so we looked at stacking tanks. We thought about it, and then we thought, this seems mildly inconvenient. So
fair.
I vote no on that, and it worked its way through. So
perfect.
That system. So our Abbotsford system is 10 hec with 4 10 hec vessels, and matching serving vessels. And then Beaumont will be a 7 hec system with 4 7 hec vessels and 4 15 hec vessels. So we can double brew into 4 of the taps. The way it works at both locations is all of our core beers will come from our Chilliwack location. So both of those satellite locations are really, they're not doing any packaging, they're not doing any kegging, anything like that. They'll only be focusing on brewing, rotating one-offs.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there many opportunities so far with the Abbotsford location where there's, like, say, a product you want to trial, like Sasquatch hops in a dark beer, and are able to are able to, like, beta it there?
Oh, for sure. We've definitely trialed a number of different yeast strains, which have now made their way into our full-size seasonal releases.
Sweet.
Some different hops and just different, like, dosing rates of things. We're doing some different. We have a whole program, or I don't know what you want to call it, event, an ongoing event, let's call it, from sort of the middle of November till the end of December, and it's like this super hyper Christmas focus thing. I believe it's called. I think it's called Miracle. It's this whole program where you can, like, you do the most decorations you can possibly do, and you have special cocktails and you have special food, and it's set up with this hospitality company, and so they kind of give you these special glassware and all this sort of very hyper Christmassy stuff. We did that last year, and we're doing a version of it this year, but we want to focus a little bit more on beer and less on the cocktails, or at least bring the beer up a bit more.
Right.
So with that, we're going to be releasing a new beer every week for 5 weeks.
Wow.
Tap only.
Yeah.
And they're all supposed to be Christmas inspired or holiday inspired. So we're getting lots and lots of practice with dosing rates of various spices.
Oh yeah.
And
Perfect.
Vanilla.
Now I know who to call for all my cardamom
Yes.
dosing rates.
How much nutmeg is too much?
Oh yeah.
It's not very much, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta zest your own nutmeg. That's the
real win.
Yeah. Super
Yeah.
good.
Nobody does winter ale really anymore. There's the Granville Island winter ale, the House Sound one. R&B used to do, what was it, Old Saint Nick?
Yep. Dead Frog did one. Beeracle, I think was what it was called when I was there.
I think Steamworks still does one too. I think they do a pumpkin ale. So
I know Steamworks had one called Blitzen, and it was like a triple base sort of thing.
Yeah, Blitzen.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's smart. They kind of like shoehorn their Belgian beer.
It's a good move.
into just just make it a Christmas beer. Put a Christmas label.
Yeah,
I'm gonna steal that idea.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
How to be able to brew a Belgian quad and make it sell?
Yeah, just put Santa Claus on it.
Yeah, that's fun. What do you? This sounds cool. R&Ding some things on the smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like an example of like a hop that kind of blew you away, or a yeast that kind of like moved up to the bigger production? From those smaller locations.
Yeah. So we've been trialing a lot of different sort of New England style or London hazy yeast strains.
Right.
We don't really. We're probably one of the few breweries who don't have a hazy as a core.
Right.
And that some inside information. That's something we're working towards, because it seems like after 8 years, that's not going away. So we should probably have one all the time. But we've been trialing like every strain that we can find.
Yeah.
And I'm really liking the Yeast Canada Saturated. I don't know if either of you guys have brewed with that one, but
yeah.
I was really happy with how it turned out, how it interacted with our hops that we had, and
yeah. That yeast rips. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use it like normally in our brewery, but I have used it before, and it's awesome. I think it's ripped off of the Verdant strain, or that's what I was.
Mm-hmm.
Someone told me one time.
Yeah.
Very, very. I don't know if that's true. Yeast suppliers are like notoriously kind of vague about where they get their yeast from. So, which makes sense. But yeah, that yeast is awesome. It does work awesome. I think Four Winds is using it for their hazy beers as well.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's just been. It also really just stays in suspension really nice. So we had it in our serving vessel, and there was some shifting around, and we have one serving vessel that's kind of like, this is the next one that's going on.
Right.
And I had moved the beer in thinking that the other ones were going to finish off relatively fast, and they did not finish off as fast as I thought. So we had this hazy IPA sit there for an extra month, and it was still super hazy. And I was like, all right, this is
all right.
I like this. This is maintaining. So I don't know. I was happy with it. Yeah, other
That's
stuff
cool.
that we tried. I mean, like I said, we'd use a ton of different fruit. So different dosing rates on different fruits. How much pear do you have to use? How much rhubarb? How much
Right.
cucumber? How much passion fruit? How much? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure we went through the list and was like, we'll just buy every single one you have, and we'll try them all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Little
Nice.
fruit basket.
yeah.
Are you purchasing most of your fruit through Pacific Coast?
Yeah, I would
in
say,
Abbotsford?
yep. The majority comes through Pacific Coast. We do get some from Country Malt, which is Oregon fruit.
Yep.
And then we
Yeah.
also get a little bit from David Carrier.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're based out of Quebec, but they just sometimes have stuff that other people don't, and it's usually if I'm looking for something. So what was the one I was just trying to find? Blood Orange. Pacific Coast was sold out, and then I just kind of like check where. Okay, does anybody have this or not? Seemed like it was everywhere last year, so
That's so how it goes. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. It's not blood orange season now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ironically the season where you want to brew the beer is sometimes not the season that the
Well, exactly.
packaging is happening, right? Yeah.
You mean pumpkin ales?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just brew that in August.
Yeah. You're also you're like me, another dad in the beer industry.
Yeah.
How do you juggle dad life with the rigors of brewery life? Sometimes it's two tales of pulling you different directions.
It's a challenge, but I mean, yeah, I mean, well, we were trying to do this last week, and or maybe it was just, I don't know, whenever it was, but there's Girl Guides, and I have to go pick them up, and it's like I won't be back in time, and someone's at dance, and then it's piano, and then it's competitive swimming. I'm like, okay, the crap am I doing here? So, no, it's but it's good. I think the last year or so, I've really realized as busy it is for the kids and with work, I've kind of realized I need to focus on me a little bit more. Which is kind of, my kids are also getting a little older, so it's a little easier. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. A little bit more independent. So yeah, I've been able, and that focusing on me has made it so when I am doing the other things, I'm focused on the other things. So if that kind of makes sense.
For sure, yeah.
So what's Nick doing for Nick now?
Yeah.
Nick is
what takes up your time outside of brewing?
Yeah. Mountain biking.
You've got access to incredible trails out there.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. And then if I'm not mountain biking, I do a lot of like hiking, trail running, sort of that sort of thing. Nice. And for anyone who's listening or doesn't know who I am, I was getting pretty rotund, pretty round, and so when I started this, it was not like I was some sort of athlete or anything. I'm not now, but it was like, I'm going to go for a walk. But even just that, like, 20 minutes becomes 40 minutes, 40 minutes becomes an hour. But it just recenters you. And then when you're working, you can really just dive into it. And then, or if you're with the kids or with family, it's like, hey, then this is what I'm doing. And COVID I had a bigger impact than I realized on me, and I was going through COVID and I was like, this doesn't affect me. Where are all these people complaining about, like,
pretty easy to ignore and put your head down when brewing was considered
essential
an essential service.
And And
It's
that's
like,
kind
I've
of
never worked harder in my life than
exactly. It's like, fuck.
No tasting room. It was
yeah.
in regard that was a good time to be in the industry.
Sales through the roof,
Yeah.
breaking records every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so coming out of that and kind of recentering, gauging what work-life balance and that sort of thing, I think it was really important for me and probably for everybody.
Sweet. And what excites you about the BC beer industry these days? And do you get to go out there, try beers, or are you just kind of stuck in the same loop that I'm in of work home kind of thing?
Yeah. No, trying new beers is something that's far in between for me. Luckily, I have a pretty good team at work who likes to bring beers in.
Nice.
So whether it's our sales team or whoever, so that's probably the way I try the most new beers.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're on the off chance that I am out somewhere, I'll try to pop in wherever I can. But yeah, as far as the industry goes, I think it's maturing a little bit. At least it seems. Maybe I just am, but I think it's maturing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that means there's going to be some things that are lost that were really fun. Kind of just like the carefree sort of anything can happen attitude. It's definitely less carefree, but I think everyone who rises to that challenge is going to just be. It's going to make the industry stronger. You know, like everyone who's there and doing it still, who's been able to make a go of it, has been able to do it for a reason. So
right.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. Like there's lots of like people like us that have been doing this for 10 years and 10 plus years for yourself, and like still doing it because you really care about the beer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to make French saisons and all that stuff. And we all lament that we can't make them as much anymore, but I think we still find enjoyment doing other stuff too, and trying new yeast strains, and and seeing other breweries open and all that stuff is still exciting for sure.
Yeah, one of the sort of mental blocks or switches that I had to kind of get over in the last couple of years has been more of just how to being creative to be creative. There's a lot more restrictions, whether it's costs or specific styles that are required or whatever it is. And how can I still be creative and play in that sandbox? It used to be a giant sort of entire beach of opportunities, and now it's like, hey, well, I got this little sandbox.
Right.
But it's up to me how fun it is or isn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like that. Yeah.
Also gives you opportunity to really like dive into the details, and I mean, to me, I'm like, yeah, seasonals are great, but like whatever I learned from this, if I'm not going to brew it again, unless it's like a seasonal I'm planning to do 4 batches, it's almost more frustrating at times.
Yeah.
The core products where you really get to like hone in and like play around with whether it's temperature or just single ingredients.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like, I'm gonna try dry hopping this dry hop over 2 days instead of just all in one day. Like, is that gonna be better? Or is it gonna be the same? It's like such a small change, but you don't know till you do it.
Yeah, we've been. That's actually funny because over the last year, part of what we've been doing is going through each of our cores one by one. I mean, okay, it's good, but how can we make this great?
Right.
And so we've been working through them, and we focused on our blonde, and our blonde never really. Not that wards are necessarily the end all be all, but our blonde never really won anything, and we actually ended up. It's dry hop. It's a dry hop blonde with Galaxy, and we pulled back on our dry hop like a fair amount. it's still there, but it's much more nuanced and subtle. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it wins at the Canada Beer Cup, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess when you really focus in on this, it wasn't really that far off.
Right. Yeah.
Again, not that the awards are necessarily the end all be all, but
No.
No, but it's a nice quantifying thing that like your extra attention to detail is catching somebody's eye somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not just me who thinks that this is better or good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess to wrap up here, maybe I'll ask our deep existential question of,
oh boy,
why should people drink Old Yale beer?
I think you should drink Old Yale beer where you can find Old Yale beer, and there's a little bit more to that. So we've changed our business plan and pulled out of a lot of territories, and the reason for that is because we want to support our backyard as strongly as we can. And in the same way as I think whatever town you go to, you should drink the beer from that town. And if your town has 25 different breweries, you should drink the beer from that neighborhood and just see what it's like. So that's my honest answer. My marketing answer is it's obviously the best beer that's around, and you should ask for it everywhere. But yeah,
20 years of awards for stouts don't lie.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
It's got a pretty good. That many people can't be wrong.
That's right. Yeah. So if they want to find your beer, mostly they can find it in the Fraser Valley, region.
So, we have a strong presence, sort of, I would say, east of the Fraser, all the way out to about Hope, Manning Park, maybe. We should be BC liquor stores. We have a couple listings there. The Sasquatch Stout is listed in BC liquor stores. Private liquor stores will have everything.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Definitely check it out. And if you want to support Aslan and I, go buy our beer wherever you can find it as well. Neighborhood Brewing and Main Street Brewing. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. If you also want to watch the podcast, you can watch it on YouTube. I post the video when I remember to post it, usually within the first couple of days of us releasing the podcast. But you can find it there.
You can see these lovely faces.
Yeah. We're pretty cute.
Very cute.
Yeah, not bad. Thanks Nick for being on the podcast. And until next time, guys, cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.